coming, Mum," she called back, wondering why she had just wandered off like that. The rain began gushing down. Reaching the house, she ran in, slamming the door behind her. "I helped Mum bring your stuff in," Jake boasted. "Were you walking off like that, wasn't it? Getting out of work?" He grinned, ridiculing her. She just ignored her brother. "Did I just feel the urge to find that swing? It must be me, just wanting to know what was out there for my own peace of mind." Noticing how dark it was, feeling around the walls for a light switch, her hand fell upon it. She flicked the switch. Nothing happened. "Blast," she cursed. "That's all we need. The place probably doesn't have any bulbs." Just then she heard a creaking sound from somewhere in the dark hall. Barbara froze. The echo seemed to be coming from all around her. It was hard to pinpoint the exact direction. "Oh, there you are," Mrs. Hoffman said, flicking on a torch. "I think the power's turned off. I was just going down to the basement to turn it on. Sorry about this. Your dad did say everything was paid for and ready." "Well, you know Dad," her daughter replied, doing her best not to show her fears. "He always picks cowboys. I'll bet they made off with the refrigerator, oven, TV and radio." She crossed her arms over her chest. "We'll be forced to spend the night in this damned old house, with no power, no nothing." Her mum didn't respond. She just headed off into the darkness. Using the fading light from her mum's torch, Barbara found the door. She pushed her way inside, stumbling over something on the floor. Something fell beside her. "Ouch," she groaned. "I already hate this place." Pale light flooded into the room from two table lamps, still leaving half of the room cloaked in shadow. Rolling over, she saw a white smiling face. It grinned back at her in the poor light. It gave her a start. "Ha, ha. It's just a dumb toy clown." Getting to her feet, she propped the figure out of the doorway and looked around the room. Dust sheets covered the furniture. The floor seemed to be littered with old toys of all kinds, from dolls' houses to a small carousel. "That's funny. Why didn't the owners take all these things with them? Surely their kids would miss them." "We got power," Jake exclaimed, running through the open door. "We've got the refrigerator, oven, radio and TV. Looks like Dad really pulled through for us this time." He studied her for a brief moment. Taking in all the room, he thought for a moment. "Looks like we found your favorite room." "Oh, very funny, Jackie," she retorted. "I bet Colin is going to love this place." "Oh, P.O.O." she moaned. She had forgotten about Colin. Her older brother was off at college. Her half-brother, his dad had died when he was young. His mother remarried and had her and Jake. Colin never really suited the new family unit. He would always spend his time alone. "You'll be truly outnumbered then, sis. Me, Mum, Dad and Cole all liking this house." "Oh, will you please get lost, you little dork." "Yeah, well, I'm going up to choose my room," he gloated. "I'm going to pick the best one." Who cares? She certainly didn't. Leaving her old school, places she knew well and loved like the Golden Gate Bridge, thrown into the middle of nowhere. The only advantage was no more appointments with Dr. Mcrobbie, her shrink. Finding the kitchen didn't take too long. Barbara found her mum in the middle of cooking supper. She was sitting at the dining table reading a house design magazine. She peered up as Barbara came in. "It won't be ready for a while, dear," she said, looking up from a book. "Why don't you choose a room, not the biggest?" "I've already warned your brother about that. It's reserved for your father and I." Mrs. Hoffman flipped the page over. "Your things are near the stairs." "Okay, Mum." She headed back out into the dimly lit hall. The light flickered constantly. The stairs rose silently upwards, once so proud with intricately decorated banisters. She stooped to pick up her bag of personal belongings. Wear and tear showed up everywhere, creaky stairs, many of which were cracked. The entire house seemed to shake to its foundation on every thunderclap. At the top, a dull red carpet spread out like a sea of blood, leading to stern-looking wooden doors. At the far end of the landing, a light burned brightly. "That's the one Jake chose." She picked one right at the opposite end. It was small and nicely compact. Its curtainless window looked out on the backyard and woods. And that swing. A small wooden chair sat in the corner. Barbara dumped her bag on the single bed and slumped down beside it, taking her new room. Images of her old cozy suburban room clogged up her mind. Quickly she shook them away like flies, emptying her bag's contents of books, videos, a few clothes and personal items such as hair, toothbrushes and her blanket, with written on the corners. Despite being 17, she had always relied on it for comfort. After sorting through it, she lay back on the strange bed. Even though the room was small, the shadows still managed to follow her wherever she went in this awful place. Huge drops of rain started pounding against the single pane of glass, nearly drowning out her mum's faint calls that supper was ready. But the long journey had taken its toll, as well as being locked in the same space with Jake. Sighing, Barbara got to her feet and groped her way down the kitchen and dining room. She found her mum and brother sat at the table with burger and fries in front of them. "Come on, we're waiting," he snapped. "I'm starved." She dragged herself to the table and sat down, taking a couple bites of food. "So when is Dad coming then?" "He said he'll be here next Thursday." Mrs. Hoffman laughed. "You have the weekend to explore the town before school starts next week." "Now that should be interesting," Barbara scoffed. "Winterfield High should be a great fun." After finishing of her meal and she looked at her watch, 11 o'clock was fast approaching. Her eyes felt so heavy as though they could drop out. "Well, you two, I think I'm going to call it a night. It's been a rough couple of days." "Good night," Jake said in a deep sticky voice. "That's if you can get a wink of sleep." "Ha, ha." He burst out laughing till his mum clipped him round the ear. "That's enough," she demanded. "It's way past your bedtime, young man." He looked stunned, whipping the smirk off his face. "Oh, Mum, bed." "Gutted," she just scolded her brother. "At least I got the choice." Jake pushed his chair away and rose, his head held high. He marched out the room. Thumping could be heard as he rocked up the old stairs. Not wanting to end their first day in Winterfield on a bad note, Barbara slowly went up and knocked on her brother's door. "Come in," he called back. "It's open." Slipping inside, the light was out, but the boy's form could be seen over by the window. "I wondered what kind of wild animals live out there." His gesture took in the surrounding forest. "Wolves maybe. If you keep quiet you can hear them howling in the still night air. If you think Millie's bad." Jake pointed at the spider as it rested up against her plastic case. "So, cut it out, will you?" She slapped him on the back. "I only came to say good night, not to be frightened to death. The only monster around here is standing right next to me." "Have a really nice night," he said, meaning it. There were times, very few of them, when he could be quite sweet. She closed his door and crept down the hall to her small room. Slipping on her nightshirt, she flopped down on her bed, crawled under the covers and dropped off to sleep. Barbara's dreams only seemed to be pleasant memories of her old life, but it was cut short as the sound of thunder awoke her. Or was it the thunder? She heard an odd giggling sound floating up from the yard. The window seemed to pull her towards it. The gales still pounded the trees, making the old house groan as it swayed under the hammering weather. When a flash of lightning lit up the yard, what she saw made her heart begin to race.